Joining us right now, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus, former criminal defense attorney for O.J. Simpson, and the author of Trumped Up, How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Alan Dershowitz is with us. Alan, great to see you.
Thank you.
So much to discuss with you this morning. Let's parse through it. First of all, the charges from Robert Mueller coming now, just after we learn who paid for the famous dossier, and that is the Clintons and the DNC. Now, the week that they want to release tax reform. What's your take on all of this?
Well, I think the timing is probably coincidental in the sense that he's been working on this for a long time. And, of course, the president and his spokeswoman were right when they said this has nothing to do with the president, but it has everything to do with why they went after him. That is, if Manafort were not somebody who had been the campaign advisor, nobody would have looked at his tax returns or his FARA filings.
Point, yeah.
They were just trying to get him so that they could squeeze him and get him to sing. The problem is sometimes cooperating witnesses not only sing, they compose. They make up stories. They exaggerate because they know that the better the evidence, the sweeter the deal. So there's great danger in this tactic being used.
Wow.
And it's so interesting that civil libertarians like me have long opposed this tactic, going after people, targeting them in order to squeeze them, to get them to testify against other people. But today, you only go after a tactic if they're going after your friends. You don't go after the tactic if they're going after your enemies. And so I think a civil libertarian, whether they use this to go after Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, should be concerned about it. You know, the first rule in America of committing a crime, listen to this, everybody. If you're going to commit a crime, don't commit a crime. But if you're going to commit a crime, always commit it with somebody more important than you. So you can turn them in, and they can't turn you in, because that's the way the game is played.
Oh, my
Yikes.
God.
That's encouraging.
Yikes.
A question for you. The funding of the dossier, DNC, Hillary Clinton campaign, Obama for president, you know, that seems to be a factor. And then Mueller and his team have, I think it's more than a dozen people that are donors to Hillary Clinton and to the Democrats. How damaging are those two components, or would they play any role in the government's case should they bring charges?
They prove the point I make in my book about the criminalization of political differences. It is not a crime to fund negative research. It is not a crime to accept negative research from the Russians. We're failing to distinguish between things we don't like, things that might be political sins, and criminal conduct. And so far, I haven't seen criminal conduct directed against the president or against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Well, but again, you look at these indictments, and one of the charges against Paul Manafort, lying to investigators, which happened last year. The George Papadopoulos pleaded guilty to lying to investigators. But in the dossier funding, that should have been disclosed on campaign finance filings. If it was not, that's a crime. So if we're going after kind of the small stuff,
we shouldn't be going after the small stuff on either side. Let's reveal it, expose it. You know, that's why I was so opposed to the appointment of special counsel. We want to get to the bottom of whether there was an attempt by Russia to influence any election, any election. We needed a nonpartisan 9/11 type commission to do that. The worst way of getting at the truth is through a special prosecutor, because they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in prosecuting people. They're interested in getting admissible evidence. They do everything behind closed doors.
But wait a second, just to underline what Dagan is saying, I mean, is it not true that John Podesta sat there with his lawyer when asked, where did this dossier come from? And he basically said, I don't know, but it was actually the lawyer sitting next to him that actually paid. Here's a clip from my interview with John Podesta after he met with the House Intelligence Committee on the Russia probe. Watch this.
They wanted to know essentially what had happened to me and what the effect of was on the campaign, the Russian interference in our democratic process, and they're probing what actually happened, whether there was collusion, and what are we going to do about it. They asked me not to get into specific questions that they asked me and my specific answers, but in general terms, they're taking a bipartisan look at this stage.
And we now know that John Podesta's brother, Tony Podesta, yesterday announced he was stepping down from the firm, the lobbying firm that he founded. Your take on that?
Well, look, everybody's investigating everybody. Everybody's pointing in fingers and saying, lock them up, lock them up. I think we should get to the bottom, find out exactly what happened, and only prosecute people for serious crimes. Look, it should not be a crime to lie to an FBI agent. It should only be a crime when you put your hand on the Bible and you say you're swearing to tell the truth. You know how many people know it's actually a crime to lie to a police officer or a law enforcement official?
I know that because I've been preaching it for 20 years because I covered the Martha Stewart trial, and they got her for lying to the FBI, for lying to investigators.
And we civil libertarians were furious at that, and we should be just as furious when they're doing it to go after Donald Trump as when they did it to go after Martha Stewart or Hillary Clinton. We should be neutral, objective, and try to narrow the criminal law, not make it like an accordion that you can use to